These are absolutely critical, and people tend to dismiss the importance of these, but they're absolutely critical. So I'm very grateful to Carol Gray. This is her invention, so she needs to be recognized. She developed this concept of social stories in 1998. And a social story is a story defined by specific format and guidelines that objectively describe a person, skill, event, concept, or social situation. Social stories allow people who live, especially on the autism spectrum, to be successful in doing new things or things that they don't do very often. So a social story is just that. It's a story, but it's written in a kind of a prescriptive way to begin with. It starts with, these specific kinds of sentences, and they're put together in a certain ratio. So there's descriptive sentences that they define where something's happening, who's involved, what they're doing, why they're doing it, and so there's one or two of these sentences. And then that might be something like, many people eat at McDonald's. There are many people in the room. Some of the people are writing. It just describes the situation. Perspective sentences are statements that refer to or describe a person's internal state, their knowledge, their thoughts, their feelings, their beliefs, their opinions, their motivation, their physical condition, or their health. And so you have a couple of these kinds of sentences. And so it's something like, an example would be something like, my mom will feel happy when I learn to do these things, or whatever. It talks about the feelings. People people who live on the autism spectrum often need to have those feelings taught to them, how to describe them, how to be aware of them. And so then after you do those sentences, so first the descriptive, then the perspective, then you do directive. And the directive sentences are statements that define what's expected as a response to a given cue or situation. And very, very often, people who live on the autism spectrum don't know how to respond to a certain situation. So these directive sentences tell them what they might be able to do. And it's we try to avoid having something that is written in stone. So we would say, I might have to stay in my chair, or I might try saying hello to somebody, And then there's a basic ratio of 0 to 1 directive sentence and 2 to 5 descriptive and or perspective sentences. That's to begin with. That's what I found really worked when we started using social stories. But over time, as a person really starts getting used to these stories, they can become as simple or as complex as needed. A social story that I wrote recently was about 4 pages long, and it had every single detail, and it had what she could expect was going to happen, when it was going to happen, and how she might be feeling, how other people might be feeling, how she might respond to things. It had everything in there, and that's what she needed to be able to prepare for this big event that's coming up. So it's whatever works for the person. It's just written as a story, and the key is to have the information in the story that is relevant to the person.